Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another video. I'm going to talk about if you focus on prevention too much, you probably are putting a huge security hole in your environment, right? So this is more of a design topic. So if you really look at network design and security design as a whole, you got a couple things. You have the detection stage, you have the prevention stage, and then you have the recovery phase. All right. Now, if you really want to go and get a little bit deeper, you got before, during, and after. Right. So a lot of this would come down to what fit in these stages, right? You have either IDS in here, you have something that either watches like telemetry data, you have alarm systems and all that good stuff here, etc. Prevention, you got IPS, you have firewalls here, a lot of controls here. I mean, if you get physical security, you got gates, moats, stuff like that. Moats. And then recovery is pretty much backups for the most part. All right, so let's draw a line between them. So when I talk to most customers, most clients, you know where they spend a lot of their money on? Prevention. They spend a whole lot of money on prevention. Why? Because in my opinion, prevention is the sexiest, right? That's the sexiness. It's, oh, the firewall, oh, micro segmentation, oh, this, that, and the other. People love talking about prevention. But I always say that you really should be spending a lot of money, or at least the same amount of money, in your detection and recovery capabilities. Here's why. You can't prevent something you can't see. So if you can't detect right here, if you can't detect a breach, you can't detect malware in your system, you can't detect abnormal behavior from a host in your environment, you can't prevent anything. And this gets people burned the entire time. If you can't see an exfiltration attack, hey, why is Susie's computer downloading or transferring 3 terabytes of data at 2 o'clock in the morning? Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't even notice that was happening. Yeah, you don't notice that until that information is out on the internet. A lot of attacks nowadays are exfiltration attacks. They're just trying to hoard as much data or get access to your private data, and then eventually you might see that out on the internet somewhere. I mean, I've seen it myself. I've gotten letters about, oh, some of your personal information got leaked. Yeah, and if you're sending it to me, you probably didn't encrypt that data, so you have to follow the response notification laws that say, hey, you need to notify people because you probably didn't encrypt the data. So it's clear text and it got stolen. It is what it is, right? And side quest again, in certain laws will say if you're encrypting the data, you could kind of get around that notification law that you have to notify people when their stuff gets breached, because as long as you're using a very strong encryption, they shouldn't be able to break it. So you may or may not need to notify people, but you should ask your lawyer about that. Do not take my word 100% until you actually talk to your attorneys and figure that out for yourself. Just a little tidbit there. But yeah, a lot of people spend all this money on prevention and they can't see it. And in a couple of my videos, I've always said, you can't protect what you can't inspect, right? So if you don't know what's going on, you can just give up on prevention. The other thing is recovery. So recovery is where, your RTO and RPO values come into play. So RTO is recovery time objective, and RPO is recovery point objective. So this is basically, RTO is how long till I can get this thing back up. Or the downtime there, the maximum tolerable downtime is also something in here, MDT, maximum tolerable downtime, which kind of fits into your RTO. your RTO should be less than your MDT. So for instance, if you say, hey, I can only be down for 1 hour, your recovery time objective should be like 45, no more than 45 minutes. If it's an hour. Your recovery point objective is how much data can you afford to lose, or how far can you go back from a data standpoint. So let's say, hey, I want to recover within an hour, and I don't want to lose more than, I should be able to recover back to, if it's an hour, let's say I can only lose about 2 hours worth of data. Now, depending on that means you're gonna be taking a lot of backups, right? Some people would say, hey, I don't want to lose more than, I should be able to get back at least to yesterday, right? I can lose 1 day worth of data. Depends on your organization, what your RPO, RTO, and your MDT values are going to be. But a lot of people, are you testing your backups? Test it. Most people don't test their backups. They just think the backup's going to work. And that's right there. That's bad network management. If you're not regularly testing your backups to see if you can recover the data, what you don't want to do is something happens, you get into a bad situation, and you go put that recovery tape in, and it doesn't work, or the data is corrupted, or some other bad thing happens. You should be testing your backups regularly. From a prevention standpoint, the things that can burn you there is, let me make sure I got my pin value here. The things that can burn you here is bad configuration, bad configs, right? You might have not set it up correctly. Your IPS could be wrong. You probably don't have something called a variable set, depending on what your IPS is, that is not configured to actually, your home net is not configured for your internal IP addresses or your RFC 1918s. You might have a firewall that has a huge gap that has an any rule in there with no inspection on it, which I've seen that burn a lot of people. Your gate might have a big, huge hole in the back of it that you didn't actually check, and somebody can get into your network from a physical security standpoint and get into your building because you left a hole in the gate. Moats, I don't know if anybody's using moats like that, but I just threw that in there for, old biblical times, if you want to call it that. Detection. What's going to get here is the same thing as prevention, which is bad configs. If you're not configuring alarms correctly for certain type of abnormal activity, you won't be able to see anything. You won't get any detection. If you put the wrong email address in your alarm, it sends it to some phantom alarm email. Nobody knows about it. So that is really where I see a lot of people go wrong, especially when we're talking about, protecting someone's network via network security. Now, network security and cybersecurity are two different things. They're the same, but they're not. And I know that's a weird thing to say because network security, I've met cybersecurity people that don't know how to configure traditional network security controls. That's why I say they're the same, but they're not. But this type of stuff is really what you need to be worried about. The 3 phases: before, during, after. Detection, prevention, recovery. Do you have the correct controls in play? Do you have the correct security policy in play? Is all this in play so when disaster strikes, because it's not a if, it's a when did that disaster strike, can you recover as fast as possible? Can you detect it, right? If you can detect it fast enough, you can prevent it fast enough, which means you don't have to resort to recovering any data that was stolen. Do you have, certain security policies in place and certain controls that are in place that prevent users from, going to certain websites and, getting drive-by malware or something like that? Then that was a brief description of, before, during, after, things that you need to look out for, and why focusing on prevention only is a huge mistake when it comes to your organization's security. This is Don from Padlock Technologies. Hopefully this video was informative. Thank you and have a nice day.